Thanks so much for watching our show. We really appreciate the support. It costs a lot to produce, so we're asking for donations and pledges here on Patreon. Thanks again. Welcome to See It and Feel It with Dr. Brett, and I'm Dr. Brett, and today I'm here with Rafael Gomez, a martial artist and a mental game coach and a high-end guide and mentor, an all-around good guy, because last week you had me on your podcast and I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure. And that was really nice words you said about me. Not that I have to pay you.
No, it's free. Thanks. So, really though, I had a great time with you. I thought you were very good, about staying in the moment and, being really curious and even going a little bit deeper in the beginning, asking a little bit more about my motivation for going into psychology and so on. So let's do something similar with you. Tell us about your, how you got started in martial arts and, why Kung Fu and some of the ways that you mentor and guide that might be unique compared to some of your peers.
Sure. So when I came to the United States when I was around 8, 3 days before my 8th birthday. I spoke no English whatsoever. Didn't even know what sounds I was listening to. It was all extremely foreign to me. So I was in a situation where I had no understanding of anything that was going on around me. New country, new language. And for me, it was really interesting because I had no choice but to adapt really quick. So that was at the age of 8. By the age of 10, I was already speaking. I was running around. I had tons of friends. And one of my friends actually was heading out. We were all playing and he's leaving. And I'm like, where are you going? He said, I got to go. And I'm like, well, where are you going? So I was very inquisitive. And he said, I got to go see my dad. I'm like, oh, can I come? So when I get there, his dad is actually a sensei and he was going for his lesson. So his dad questioned who I was and he said he wanted to come. So his dad is like, okay, let's train him too. So that started my journey in learning from someone. Prior to that, before I had that encounter with my friend's father, we were all just fighting and playing and rolling and throwing each other. We were actually grappling on the floor. And so I trained with that gentleman for about 6 months and then he became abusive. He thought I was one of his kids. It took it to the point where I was on my bike and he just approached me. He took a magic marker and he wrote on my face. And I was like, what is happening? Somehow I had the guts to say to him, don't ever come near me. If you touch me again, I will call the police. I don't know what overcame me, but I guess I had the guts to do it. And from then on, I searched martial arts and eventually I found a place that was teaching in the basement of of a church. So it was a school in the basement of a church and it was by a guy who looked like Lou Gossett Jr., if you remember him.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And
definitely.
The lesson.
Officer and a gentleman, right?
Absolutely. And he was a gentleman, but he was definitely a fighter. We used to train, puddles of around it was only 2 guys in my class that I remember who had puddles around them. And it was me and this other guy that I went to school with. And everybody else, they worked hard, don't get me wrong. But he and I were just like, we were smiling the whole time we were working out, the whole time. He had us fight in the dark. It was the most interesting, most fun time. And then from there, I just kept progressing. Eventually, I created a club in my house where I asked my dad if I can move my furniture out of the living room and the dining room. It was all, really mostly connected except by French doors. And I brought in about 8 to 10 guys and we used to train every day. And it was guys who were studying different styles. So it was kind of cool because we all got to understand what each one of us were doing. And that's where my martial arts journey started. And it's, I've never stopped. And it's been just amazing.
That's
And
fantastic. And why kung fu? Tell us why kung fu.
I just, I kind of fell into it. It wasn't necessarily a choice. I mean, my first was, it was Japanese martial arts because the guy who trained me was a Japanese martial artist, and it was karate style. I don't know exactly the style, but I know it was karate because of the uniform he wore and everything. But later on, I just, obviously we all knew who Bruce Lee was at that time. I used to go to the movie theater not too far from my house every Saturday. They had a matinee, and we would go, my brothers and I would go, and we would watch all these kung fu movies. And then later on, we also realized that on Channel 5, they had the kung fu movies like Kung Fu Theater, and we used to watch those. And then we all used to go and try to emulate that. And so kung fu really became a deep part of what I enjoyed. And so
Oh,
that's where what I seeked.
I love it. Now, just as an aside, and then we'll get more serious again or whatever, but did you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Did you, was that Kung Fu scene, the Bruce Lee scene believable where the stuntman could kick his ass? Could
You
Brad
know,
Pitt really, a really well trained stuntman can they actually do that? Or was that just pure Hollywood?
we don't know. We weren't there, right? But
Yeah.
but here's the thing, a lot of people think of Bruce Lee as like the most amazing martial artist.
Yeah.
And is it true, or is that something that the media brought to us?
The
You know,
hype, like the legend, the hype, the Hollywood thing, the money, right? And
exactly.
everything that comes with it, right? The marketing and so on.
If he was alive today, what would he be like? You know,
Mm,
yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, he created his own style, Jay Kundil, and the fact that he evolved from where he started, and he
mm,
created this thing when he was laid. Supposedly, the story is when he was on his back, his broken back. He wrote this book in his hospital bed or at home in his back, and in traction actually. And when we think about all the martial arts greats in our world, in our current environment, how did they get there? They didn't get there because of, fame. They got there because they worked, they trained. And that's what I look at in martial artists nowadays. I don't want to know what you did back 20 years ago. I want to know what you're doing now. To
yeah.
me, that's a real martial artist, right?
Mm,
So I train
mm.
every day, so I don't know anything but training.
No, I love it. And tell us about the mental game training that you do and that you do for your clients as well. How do you help people develop their focus and their concentration and their clarity and their coolness?
Well, a lot of it, when you think about it, if we can get the mind and body connection,
Hmm.
that's huge. Because in everything we do, there's that, especially in martial arts, if you're focused on what you're doing, you have that mental connection. You can't
Hmm.
think about anything else. So when I talk to people about mindset, it's let's focus on what you have in front of you. What is there that you want to accomplish? And let's take everything and put it in front of us and really dive deep. What do you
Hmm.
want to accomplish? Where do you want to go? And we can't live in what could have. We have to live in what should. What can we do? What is in our power? And how can we change our trajectory?
Hmm. So you're dealing, pretty hardcore present moment time, right? You're sitting here going, when you get someone new to train, you're orienting, teaching them right in the moment to get in the moment right there. How do you handle though when their past starts to seep in? How do you train them to sort of let that go or move through it or move beyond it? Talk to us about this sort of mental game training that you're doing constantly.
Well, one of the things is that, I ask them the question of is, what do you want to accomplish?
Hmm.
And what's holding you back?
Right.
So when people understand what's holding them back, and most of the time it's themselves, right?
Hmm.
So, when we think about the mind is so complicated. and we allow all these negative thoughts to come in, and we are
Hmm.
living a lot of times in our past, and our past may have had negative thoughts, but we have to start thinking and creating new positive thoughts. So every time I have someone in front of me, I'm trying to let them understand, hey, what you just did, what do you think about it? What are your thoughts on it? How is that going to improve you as a person? How can you take that further? So, in thinking about what we're doing, what we want to accomplish, and setting goals, but realistic goals, that's key. Because a lot of people don't set up realistic goals. They set up goals that they've seen other people accomplish. But I let them know that it's not about the other person. It's about yourself.
Mm. Mm.
You always have to look within, right? So that's
Yeah,
important.
fantastic. And how do you address fear in all its disguises? Walk us through fear and how it shows up in your life and how you handle it personally and how you handle it professionally.
Well, when I think of fear, it's a lot of people don't realize that there's a couple different ways of seeing fear. I mean, if you have a ferocious animal chasing you, that could be one kind of fear. If you have a fear because you're afraid to ask for something, that's a different type of fear. So the way I handle fear for myself is, what if I don't? What if I don't take that next step? What's going to happen? So it's a self evaluation that I do a lot. And for me to ask, I have to ask the questions of, is it the right time to ask? Is it the right person to ask? And why am I asking? So I take that, it no longer becomes fear, but it's more of a question of, is this the right timing? Because a
Mm.
lot of times fear is based on timing. If somebody's attacking you, is it fear that's holding you back from defending yourself? Or is it that you're not prepared to fight back? So yes, you get that adrenaline rush when someone is in your face, right? Somebody's is attacking you, and they're going after you. So you get that adrenaline, and then how do we handle it? So how do we handle that fear that people call, and I call it a rush, because it's how you handle every situation. And fear is basically something that we've been told you have to be afraid of things. We really shouldn't be afraid of anything, because guess what? Life is short, right?
Yeah.
So short. Should we live in fear, or should we live in the moment and the opportunities that are presented? And we create our own opportunities. Sometimes they're presented to us, and we can choose what we're going to do with them. So
Yeah,
when we
I
talk
love
about
it.
fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What are we really talking about?
Yeah. No, I love it. And it makes me sort of wonder if your approach to COVID might be slightly different than some of your peers that are more fear-based, because it seems like your ability to handle and manage fear is, pretty well developed.
Mm. It comes from all the adversity I've had. I probably should be dead 8 to 10 times over.
That many?
Yeah.
And that's not just crossing the street, because I know I've been almost killed about 8 or 10 times.
Listen,
I've driven cross country so many times, and I've had so many, near death experiences. Like literally, like you're driving cross country, and some tractor trailer driver falls asleep, or you know what I mean, and swerves in your lane. I've had all kinds of experiences like that,
oh
where
yeah,
they're just this close to over,
yeah. I
right?
mean, yeah. I mean, I've fallen when I was a kid. I've fallen, and I had a pipe go through, almost take my eye out, and I fell.
Your eyes look good. I don't see any evidence of it.
Right. It's a scar, but if you see an old picture of me, I used to have to wear a patch on my opposite eye to strengthen the one that I almost lost my eye on.
Wow, that's
I felt
fascinating.
in Colombia. I think I was like 2 or 3, and I fell from a second story. But over there, the stories were not short like here. They're like 12, 14 feet high. So basically, almost like from 3 stories. I fell, and it was in the middle of a courtyard. And in the old days, they used to have those big tubs that they used to wash the clothes in. And that's where I fell in. Had that not been there, had I fallen 3, 4 feet the other way, I would have been dead. So,
God.
and thank God it was water in it. The last thing I remember is hitting it, looking up, and seeing red. And then I think I woke up like 3 weeks later in dad's arms. So
I can't
that
help it.
was
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm
because it's
remembering
funny.
some of my near-death experiences
Oh, yeah.
too.
You know, and I've had other falls like that. I've had falls where I had actually had to go as a kid. I had to go and have surgery. So,
Wow.
and another one about 2 years ago, my sister said, "Yeah, we were in, and I looked down, and there's Rafael on the floor, like 2 stories down, and he's laying down. He fell through this thing." And I'm like, "I remember that." And she goes, "Yeah, yeah, you fell through." And
That's hilarious.
another time, I mean, seriously, I've had a gun put to my head, knife put to my throat. I've had I took a pill because I had broken ribs from doing gymnastics, and I had a pill that I took in the morning, and then I got really deathly ill, and I called my doctor, and he said, "Just take some milk." So I took some milk. I mean, there was nobody home, and I was a teenager, and I'm listening to the news at that time, and I used to listen to the news when I was a kid, not anymore. And 5 people in the New York area died from taking the same exact pill.
No way. Yeah, that's pretty
Five
awful.
people, and they took it off the market right away. And so I've
Mm,
had so many
wow.
experiences that it's taught me that I have a guardian angel somehow,
Mm,
and I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of not living.
yeah.
So that's why I cherish every moment, you know.
Wow.
So when we think about life, it's beautiful. And so many people are not enjoying every minute that they can.
Thanks for watching See It and Feel It with Dr. Brett, and stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend.